Let's talk about choices. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Input English. The topic for this episode is choice. Every day we need to make decisions. We need to choose what we want, what we need to avoid. And if you are making a decision and selecting something from an array of possibilities, you're making a choice. Basically, when you make a choice, the question is which one? Which one of these options would you like? Do you want the red one, the blue one, or the yellow one? Do you want the big one, the small one, or the one that's medium size? Do you want the hot one or the cold one? So we make choices every day. As our world has evolved in recent years, the number of choices that an individual person is faced with is increasing. This explosion of the number of choices that we have has caused a lot of discussion about the problems associated with choices. If your choice is between two options, this one or this one, this is not very stressful. You look at the characteristics of each choice, you reflect on it, and you make a decision. I'll take that one, or I'll take this one, and you're done. But what if it's more complex? What if you have, instead of two choices, you have four? That's more stressful to us. It taxes our cognition at a higher level. We have to consider more things as we make those choices, and it starts to be fatiguing and stressful. As people are faced with too many choices, that can create negative consequences. People have described choice overload. Another term you might hear is overchoice. Decision fatigue has been used to describe this problem of too many choices. Often the problem of too many choices is created by marketing. Now, I'm not going to suggest that we should go back to the good old days. I'm not espousing that we should go back to a previous way of doing things. I'm simply talking about what we are seeing right now. Decades ago, if you wanted to select a product, let's say, for instance, a pair of jeans, you would find the jeans, you would find the size closest to what fits you, you might try them on, and then you would be satisfied with what you had at a reasonable level. The nice thing about denim jeans is as they get washed and they soften up, they tend to fit better and better. In 2024, if you try to select denim jeans, you will find trim cut, medium, relaxed fit, all sorts of different characteristics, including the finish of the fabric. Do you want indigo denim? Or would you prefer stone washed or acid washed or distressed? It's no longer a matter of deciding to buy blue jeans and then selecting your size. No, you have to go through a long list of options and try to figure out which one you want. Most people find this a little fatiguing. An interesting side effect of having all these choices is an increased probability of disappointment. People reason that since they have so many choices and they have made their choice, that afterward, sometimes they regret the choice they made and start second guessing themselves, thinking, well, maybe I should have gotten that other one. Too many choices can be associated with significant buyer's remorse or significant disappointment after the choice has been made. Another side effect of too many choices sometimes is that the person simply does not act. They have all these choices, and when faced with so much of a decision to make, so much information to process, they simply do nothing. So how does this problem of choice overload or overchoice, how does this affect us? We are language learners. We're using comprehensible input to learn our target language, in this case, English. How does overchoice affect us? Well, the same way. As you select the content you want to consume as comprehensible input to learn English, there are way too many choices. So how do we navigate this? How do we overcome the psychological effects on us of having too many choices? First of all, we need to recognize these psychological effects that are at work here. If you have too many choices, you may feel overwhelmed. Recognize that. Don't let it upset you. Just recognize it. This is what we're up against. Next, use the criteria that you already know about to judge what sort of content you would like to consume. So our source of information on that, on this channel, would be Stephen Krashen. Professor Krashen stipulated that for content to be useful for your purpose, it should be comprehensible. That is, you should be able to understand it rather well. It needs to be interesting. It needs to be compelling. So this is very useful. If you have a lot of content out there and it looks overwhelming to you, you can just apply these criteria as a filter and get rid of the stuff that doesn't meet your criteria. So from a practical point of view, how do you do that? On YouTube, you play some. You watch the video, you listen to the language, and then you ask yourself, can I understand that story? Am I getting the story? You don't have to know every word in the story. You have to have enough that the story comes into your head, because that's the vehicle that's bringing the language to you. You need the story. We've said that before. So as you audition content on YouTube or any source, the first question is, can you understand it well enough that you can honestly say you understand the story? First criteria, check. Second, is it interesting? So this is a wonderful filter for the traditional teaching material that is posted on the internet and on YouTube. There are people teaching grammar, vocabulary, word lists, and the question is that interesting to you? I think that is easy to decide. So if you find material that you can understand, but you don't find interesting, that's another decision made, and that filters out a lot of material. The third criteria, the material needs to be compelling. That is, it has to hold your attention. If you're listening to a story and your mind drifts off to thinking about what you're going to do tomorrow or what you did yesterday, then that story is not compelling. And that's our third filter. These are the tools that you can use to filter out a lot of those choices so you simply don't have to worry about them. Once you've applied those three criteria, there are a lot fewer choices to make. Another way to deal with choice overload is curated material. That is a collection of recommendations, perhaps a single recommendation, but recommendations from somebody you trust. Now, I used this during the pandemic. I decided during the pandemic that I was going to read some great literature because I had some time on my hands and I wanted to use it wisely. I didn't want to just sit and watch television or old movies. No, I wanted something useful to come of this time that I could repurpose. I decided to read some great literature, but it was overwhelming. If you say, I want to read the great literature, there are too many choices. It's just overwhelming. So I actually found a fellow in England with a degree in literature who's an expert on the Western canon. I may have mentioned him in another video. This is Benjamin McAvoy. He has a YouTube channel and he makes recommendations, not in a dogmatic, difficult way, but in a very helpful, curating way. He makes personal recommendations about the literature he likes and why he likes it. So I didn't follow his recommendations completely. I didn't read every book he recommended, but I read a lot of them, and I found his recommendations very helpful, again, to filter the content that was out there. It was choice overload until I had somebody who was knowledgeable curating this information. In language learning, specifically comprehensible input, sites that do it well curate the information. That is, we collect the stories and discussions so that people don't have infinite choices. One of the things that is common is when people find an author or an artist that they like, they tend to consume other material created by that artist or author. I can recall that after I read the first book by Vonnegut that I encountered, that was Slaughterhouse-Five, I purposefully read everything that Vonnegut had written that I could get my hands on because I thought that his writing was fabulous. The same thing occurred when I found Thomas Hardy's Return of the Native. I thought, this is a fabulous piece of literature. What else did he write? So with comprehensible input, when you find a channel or a site that makes comprehensible input for English language learners, if you dislike it, then discard it. If it doesn't meet your criteria, if it's not comprehensible, maybe you should return and visit it at a later time. If it's not interesting, move on. If it doesn't hold your attention, move on. Filter it out. If you find a channel where the stories are understandable, interesting, and compelling, then that's what you want. And then the question is, what else does that content creator have in their collection? This is a super interesting topic. I hope you enjoyed this brief discussion. Hopefully it's helped people understand how to deal with this problem of choice overload. I invite your comments below for sure, and I hope you join us in future videos. See you soon.